Star Trek The Next Generation, episode We'll Always Have Paris on Blu-ray. This is day 26 of 30 of my 30 days of Star Trek reviews. Interesting note about this episode on Blu-ray is that there's 2 seconds that they couldn't find the film reels for, so they just upconverted a VHS tape for that. Also, the name We'll Always Have Paris is a Casablanca reference. So the Enterprise is on its way somewhere to do something, and while they're on their way there, they're getting a head start on their fun time. And Picard is fencing with some rando lieutenant, which is really cool. And I realize, okay, one thing I realize is that I love about Star Trek and The Next Generation and the Federation is that everyone seems to just have like these really cool hobbies and talents and skills, and they all like work on them and enjoy these things, and because their lives are so good, right? Because they're in the Federation. And I'm realizing maybe this is the same thing for me, why I like Star Trek The Next Generation, why girls like Pride and Prejudice and stuff, because the girls are so well-to-do that all they do is just wander around the garden and write letters to each other and put blankets on each other when they get left out in the rain. And so maybe that's like me liking Star Trek, because this is what they have to do with their free time. I don't know. Okay, here is our first instance that something is amuck. And also, it's an instance that immediately makes me excited because it shows that this is a time episode.
What technique was that? The technique of a desperate man.
What?
Interesting move, sir. What technique was that? The technique of a desperate man.
Listen to the music.
Captain.
It's all synthesized and creepy. And then wait for it. Hear that bass?
Picard to bridge.
So, first of all, the fact that it's a time episode is really exciting. Second of all, the music in general in this episode is really, really cool. But throughout the entire episode, it kind of reminded me of the trailer for Dunkirk, I think, is the one that had all the ticking, like time was ticking. Maybe it was Dunkirk? Or was it Tenet? I don't remember. But throughout this episode, there's like a bass. It sounds like an upright bass. I'm not sure what it is, but it's like strumming, and it's almost like it's time. And then later there's like clicky, ticky things in the music that is, to me, sounds very time-like. And the music goes with the episode very well in that sense. So let me know if you know stuff about music and that sounds at all correct. All right, so Denise Crosby playing Tasha Yar. So she's still in the credits, even though her character is dead, which is very sad. And the show misses something without her. But I don't know if they just didn't want to recut the credits or if it's in her contract to be in the credits or what. But she's not in this episode, and yet here she is in the credits. So they get a distress call from Picard's old girlfriend, and Troy, the hypnotist, offers her services.
What do you suggest?
Confronting deep personal issues is not easy for you. You tend to suppress them. There are a few hours until we arrive. Perhaps you should use this time to analyze your feelings.
Anyway, blah, 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 psychobabble. But she's telling him to get in touch with himself. And this next part is awesome. He's trying to do what she says. And I love the result of it. So he decides to go to the holodeck, which I love. I love the holodeck, even though I love and am so annoyed by the holodeck because they always do weird, inconsistent things. But he decides to go to the holodeck and create the same kind of day in Paris where he was supposed to meet this girl. Also, look at sci-fi Paris. Look at that. Isn't that neat? It's a big matte painting that they added some flying ships on. Also, I don't think that no matter how future-y it got, people would build this directly under the Eiffel Tower. That looks pretty ridiculous. It borderline looks like a historical thing has been defaced. Like, that looks awful. But this is a cool matte painting. Look at those little ships flying around. So spacey.
I've been away far too long.
There's some wine, some cheese.
I'm Not very hungry.
Look at this.
I really came for the view.
This holodeck NPC
Perhaps
here.
what you hunger for is not on the menu.
Oh my goodness.
Perhaps.
So these holodeck NPCs end up being like little, like counselors almost, like trying to talk to them. And this next part is so awesome. Sorry, I keep getting distracted because I want to talk about every single thing. But he's about to rage quit the holodeck. Sorry, I spoiled it. So he meets this girl at the cafe, again, a fake person because it's in the holodeck, and she's all sad that her guy's not showing up, and she can't tell why. And so he starts speculating why the guy wouldn't show up. And of course, he's using his reasons. You know, he's saying he's afraid of commitment and afraid of this, and he's talking to her. So he's actually starting to talk through his issue, but you just see his face change.
Rooted. Perhaps if he's as young as
Still
you
there.
are, he doesn't know yet exactly what it is he wants to do. Maybe
Long pause. Go up again. Whoop. You can watch the episode if you want to see that.
enough of this
Look at-
self-indulgence. Exit.
He was getting there. I mean, Troy was right. She said it's hard for him to confront his deep personal issues, and he was getting there. He was actually starting to overcome issues, and then he just rage quits the holodeck. I like that. That was good. So, just like the little label at the beginning said, it said that there was going to be 2 seconds of the episode that was upconverted from SDs, basically from a VHS tape, trying to put it on the Blu-ray and make it blend in. And so, of course, me being the detective that I am, I'm like, I will find you 2 seconds of standard definition upconverted footage, and tell me if you can tell a difference. I mean, this is just filming on my phone here, but see if you can tell a difference.
A hiccup is a spasmodic inhalation with closure of the glottis accompanied by a peculiar sound. If we were to continue this analogy to a body function, what occurred would be best represented by
Enough data. Have you?
Do you see it? Maybe you didn't. Anyway, it's that part with Riker looking over. Probably can't really see it in the phone, but it's very gritty looking, very messy. The colors are totally weak looking, so it for sure stands out. But it doesn't ruin the flow of the show. It's just like, oh, there's some lower quality footage. Okay, this is one of my favorite parts in this episode. But this type of part is my favorite type of part in any episode, especially time episodes. I love time episodes. I remember one time I was at a Army barracks at Fort Benning waiting for airborne school to start, which never started because it was in 2013 during the government shutdown. But I had time in a hotel, and so I rented the Star Trek box set of just like time episodes. So I just watched tons of episodes across all different Star Treks that had like different time mess up stuff, and it was awesome. Okay, so this.
time distortions are now being felt in the Illicom system.
Normal conversation. Interesting conversation, but normal.
Bridge. In the last decade, Mannheim has turned some vague theories into a practical application.
And then what's going to happen?
I'm not sure we'll be able to pose any intelligent questions, let alone come up with any solutions.
Incidentally, Captain, the
What?
effects of the time distortions are now being
Okay, watch
felt in the
Data.
Illicom
This is
system.
awesome. So matter of fact.
Exams before we step into the turbo lift. It's happening again.
I feel no disorientation, nor do I.
What was that?
I feel no disorientation, nor I. So I love that Data just matter-of-factly just kind of like talks to himself and about himself. It's just like, oh, puzzling. He just takes it in stride. But if you notice, one thing that was really cool is our characters were the ones in the turbo lift. So we were following them down the hall. We get in the turbo lift, we go up the thing, and then we're startled to find these guys. But then the elevator goes up and the camera stays out here with these guys. So like these are our guys. And the show does that a couple different times where it's like, ooh, look at this like time shift, and it's like, ooh, weird. But then you actually end up following the other group or other party. So does that make sense? So you see one group or party for a little bit, and they get to a certain point, and then that group sees another earlier in time group of themselves, and then the camera stays with that second group. So it's just a really fun thing that they do with the editing and the time in this episode. So this lady's husband is dying in multiple dimensions in sickbay, so she decides to go visit Picard and talk about their old love life. Actually, they're both being very mature and like arm's length about it. But we get to see Picard do like a super genuine, like not really flirty, but very genuine smile right here. And you don't normally see that in front of the rest of his
The
crew.
real reason you left.
Which was?
That life with me would have somehow made you ordinary.
You watch him. Totally called him out. Look at that.
You're wonderful.
He's not even drunk in the Naked Now episode. He's just having a conversation, and he lets his guard down, gets all smiley. So, pseudoscience hypnotist Troy shows up to harass Dr. Beverly Crusher while she's trying to work. As follows.
Faye, that's not what I meant.
I don't think I want to talk about what I think you mean.
Captain Picard.
I can't compete with a ghost from his past. No one could.
She's not.
Okay. So, Troy is there to harass Beverly about how she feels with Janice Mannheim there from the past interacting with Picard and her feelings. And she says, I can't compete with a ghost. And it's like, are you... I mean, the show from the first episode is like, oh, these two. Like, absolutely these two. But even right here, it's like, oh, Beverly, like, you guys are sitting here talking about Picard as, like, a romantic interest. And so I decided the show is continuing with its teasing, but with the shipping of Beverly Picard, I've decided we should call them either Bevcard or Pickerly. So decide which one you like for the name of the Picard and Beverly shipped. Bevcard or Pickerly. So Dr. Mannheim knows about Picard. He knows that him and his wife had a past.
It's only this. If anything should go wrong, please take care of her for me.
So drops the bomb of take care of her for me. And what does he say?
Of course.
And I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh, Mannheim's gonna die. Picard's gonna marry this girl that, like, they clearly still have, like, unresolved issues. And it's like, there's gonna be a love triangle, Beverly, whatever. And that's what I thought, too. But then I had another thought. And it was a more awesome thought. And promising to take care of her isn't necessarily promising to marry her. Maybe if Mannheim dies, he could just drop her off at the next star base. She'll be okay. He will have taken care of her. He doesn't have to marry her. He can still be with Beverly. There's still time for Pickerly. This is a really awesome conversation between Picard and Data, where Picard suggests something and Data actually takes it kind of the wrong way, not what Picard meant.
No. I want this to be an away team of one. You. I don't think there's any reason to risk anyone else.
It is reasonable, sir. After all, I am a machine and dispensable.
Indispensable is the appropriate word. I think it should be only you.
So Picard's not like, oh, you're some dumb machine, you can die, and because that's what Data thought for a second, and he he took it like a champ, and he's like, yeah, well, sure, I can be dispensable, and that's not what Picard meant, and he goes on to explain that Data can handle the craziness of this mission a lot better, like with, as you're gonna see here in a minute, what goes down on this mission, but also just like the understanding the weird foldings of time and how to just keep it together. Like I think Picard is foreseeing people on the mission just losing their minds if seeing multiple versions of themselves. So it's actually a huge compliment that he wants Data to go by himself. Okay, this is one of my very favorite parts, and this is what I was referring to earlier, where you have the Data that we're watching go through all the different security measures and start scooping up the antimatter to go do the thing or what's it's. And then he turns around and we see this.
One. There appears to be 3 of us. Only the antimatter away for one of you. Only one of us is in the correct time continuum. Which one?
So cool. Anyway, so flawless special effects here with 3 Datas. And maybe someone smarter could tell me this, but the middle Data knows that he is the correct timeline Data. And again, this is an example of earlier where you follow the first one and then you come back and your correct Data is the middle one.
Which one's the right Data? Which one's in the right timeline? It's me.
All right, here's a holodeck moment that you wouldn't think is weird, but listen to Troy's interaction with the computer here. So keep in mind, Picard is inside of the holodeck in a program running right now.
Computer, this is Counselor Troy. Request access.
Do you wish to terminate the current program?
No, continue the program.
Enter when...
What? So the captain's in there having his little holodeck diversion. Troy comes up. Maybe she has like executive permissions for the program because she's a counselor, right? But she's like, hey, I want to go in there. And then the program's like, you want me to turn it off? And it's like, no, he's in there using it. Why would I want you to turn it off? Anyway, that to me is very, very odd. And I don't know if 1988 people thought of that with like program permissions and why they would shut it off, but it just seemed off to me. Like I don't actually understand why it would ask that. So that's a little weird to me.
All right, before we wrap it up, I want to show a couple cards. This is the Mannheim's Dimensional Door card. It's a doorway from the Star Trek customizable card game. And basically, it affects the game in a way that the Mannheim effect affected time in the TV show. So very thematic, specifically that if a player has a card in their hand matching one that just got played, then you can suspend that and then you get to play a card. And then anyway, it just does basically like a little time hiccup in the actual gameplay. So it's very thematic. And then you have Paul Mannheim himself, who it says where present may nullify Mannheim's dimensional door or double it. So that's fun and thematic. But look at his wife card. Where's she at? Right here. Look at this. So she adds 2 to the attributes of a male present, because I guess that's just the kind of person she is. But she does +4 to Paul Mannheim. So then where's he at? Right here. Then all of his stats are +4, which makes him better.
Which actually totally makes sense thematically in the TV show, because her being married to him has basically made him better. And specifically after they finish, like after he gets better when the time thing closes, you can tell that their marriage is stronger than ever, and he's determined to do a good job this time, and she helps him. And so the fact that the cards are so thematic for the simple mechanics of the game to match the TV show, to me, that's the design of a great game.
Oh, what's that right there? Oh, don't worry about it. Just flashing some bling.
So they go back to the cafe in Paris and they have a very professional goodbye and closure to both of their, I guess, open-ended emotional stuff. And so it's kind of cathartic if you imagine something like that in your life, being able to resolve it so perfectly 20 years later like this. Okay, so the ending scene here. Occasionally this show goes full-on 60s original series endings, and this is absolutely one of them.
Blue concoctions.
It's across the square from the Zanzimen's Dance Palace.
It's called the Blue Parrot Cafe. You're buying.
So funny. You're buying. All right, so it does the cheesy 60s music. They talk about money again, even though they're like, we don't have money, so that's always a little bit in conflict. But they do have money. They do. Anyway, it just plays that cheesy 60s music, and they have their outro. But this has been day 26 of 30 of my 30 days of Star Trek reviews. This is taking way longer than 30 days. Turns out, but I will get it done. And thank you for joining me. But I really, really like this episode, and because it's about time, and it's very well done. So yeah, thank you for watching. I would love to hear what you think. Bye.